going on, everyone? Welcome to this edition of On Cue. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Don't forget to check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Cue. Some really good content. We got to dive into a lot of the NFL action. We'll do that in segment number 2, but I want to get into this Joe Burrow situation and the injury, non-injury. Here we go, out for the season. Our NFL Insider, the host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football 102.9 The Game, and of course, Broad Street South at Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us on this Sunday edition of On Cue. Lloyd, always good to touch base with you, my friend. All right, so let's get into it right away. I know the NFL wants to investigate, and they should, but as we kind of do the timeline and walk through this injury with Joe Burrow, ultimately, do you believe Cincinnati did something off par, something that was wrong? And do you believe if they get draft picks taken away and or fined, it's justified by the league?
Well, it's a situation where they should have reported this sooner. He obviously was injured, and Thursday night football was right on. As soon as he got off the bus, they're like, "Boy, it's weird. He has some kind of brace on
Yep.
his wrist." And all week, I look at injury reports all week, and there was nothing on it. So they are going to get dinged for this now. Draft picks, that may be a little bit severe. I definitely think they will be fined and a heavy reprimand from the league, because we've seen other teams not report stuff, and it just comes out, and next thing you know, the commissioner's jumping on there and everything. And so the Brown family, who owns the team, they obviously are going to have to answer this. Duke Tobin, who's their de facto general manager, he probably should have reported this as well. And they're going to probably sit down and talk to them. But it was a bad look. And unfortunately, Q, he goes out in a very important game to the Ravens, fighting for the lead in
Yep.
AFC North. And now you have two teams in AFC North, which is they all have winning records. They all were playoff teams. You have Cleveland losing Deshaun Watson, and now Joe Burrow going out in the same week.
Yeah, the injuries are dropping like flies, and everyone's talking about that Thursday night. Get rid of it. That's a discussion. Maybe we'll talk later in the week. But, when you have the team come out, post that video, post that photo with the black sleeve, if you will, on the hand, Burrow comes out afterwards, says it's a new injury. They're talking about how he was throwing the ball well before that injury. I just think it's a situation where when you look at the injury report in the NFL, forget about the lines, practice report, level of practice and extent of injury, game status report, in-game injury report. I went back and there was 3 examples, and I'm sure you're familiar at least with 2 of the 3. Years ago, Seattle failed to list Richard Sherman on their injury report with an injury, and the other one was Mike Tomlin with Ben Roethlisberger back in 2019. Now, coincidentally enough, that was during week 2, leading up to week 2. They lost to Seattle. Mason Rudolph had to come in and actually relieve Roethlisberger. And then I believe the Raiders as well with a guard a couple of years ago. All these teams were fined and they were, quote, warned. I'm wondering why, and again, you hate to bring up the other elephant in the room, the gambling element, people putting bets in and wagering. It's not going to get canceled out, so to speak, but I know there is a big brouhaha because, again, when you look at it and you look at where the line would have been and then no Joe Burrow or questionable or doubtful, then all of a sudden it's a different animal. But be that as it may, it's a bad look for Cincinnati to post something and then delete it right away. That tells me, or at least I'm on the assumption, that they had knowledge that there was some form or type of injury.
They definitely did, Q. And whenever I attended practices, it always at the end of practice, it would circle around the PR guy, and he would go over the litany of guys that were hurt or injured. And most of the times you could see, because they'd have a different colored jersey if they were injured at practice. And everybody I'm talking to saying he did not have anything like that. So yeah, they definitely should have put that information out there. And as you know, now gambling is a big element in fantasy football, big element of everything. Everybody watching the National Football League, and unfortunately, this is going to be a bad look for them. And yes, I think they will get a heavy fine, a stern talking to, and those. But the thing is, those most of those cases you put out
Yeah.
there, they weren't big name guys. Yeah, Big Ben, okay, but a lot of times it's teams playing games with the injury report. We know
Sure.
that Tom Brady was on it pretty much every week with the Patriots
Yep.
for some kind of ailment, and teams don't want to kind of get in trouble for not listing somebody on there.
Sunday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. Lloyd Vance, our NFL insider, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Broad Street South, 102.9, kind enough to join us. So you look at Joe Burrow, that 5-year, $275 million contract extension. But again, he is now, look, he's injury prone, right? I mean, if we get on other quarterbacks and other players and really just sticking its quarterback position, you go back to Ohio State, had a wrist fracture 2017 when he transferred to LSU, chest rib fracture. He had the AC tear, MCL tear, PCL tear. He had a knee sprain, a knee sprain, a knee sprain, and now the wrist injury. I mean, I'm wondering if, you're looking at this type of contract and we're killing all these other teams, giving these contracts to quarterbacks and these offensive lines. I mean, he's been sacked, I think, 55 times or 148 times in 50 something odd games in his career, which kind of dwarfs Andrew Luck. It's safe to say he is injury prone. And I'm wondering if this is something that's going to continuously linger on throughout the course of his career, because we have the history of injuries dating back to college.
Yes, and it's something you definitely have to watch. I think he's going to miss about 14 games in his career at by the time all these games are said and done at the end of the season. This was something with the Bengals. They always did not invest in their offensive line. Everybody always talked about it. I remember, Carson Palmer talking about it. And then that was one of the reasons he wanted to get out of there. He just felt like the team didn't invest enough in the line and he was getting beat up a lot and he wanted to go someplace else. And, Mike Brown, the owner of the team, everybody's always kind of said, you hate to say it, he's kind of cheap. That's what he's known around NFL circles. And Burrow was supposed to be their savior, and he's done a great job with that team getting the Bengals back to levels they hadn't seen since Boomer Esiason. So, you hope that he would do better in terms of his health, and they would build up that line. I know they brought Orlando Brown in this year, bringing him over from the Chiefs, and they thought maybe he'd help out a lot. But yes, he is hit way too much, and he plays with a lot of moxie. He gets hit, he extends plays a lot, and sometimes, and he takes a lot of hits. And the Ravens were definitely coming after him the other night.
Yeah, see how it plays out the rest of the way. I mean, again, you're not tanking, right? I mean, they want to be competitive. It's going to be tough to do with a young quarterback and no Joe Burrow. The defense has to pick it up. They haven't been prominent really at all. And you kind of saw beginning of the season, right? Cincinnati was my AFC representative to go to the Super Bowl along with Detroit coming out of the NFC. But that calf injury, we talked about if it was going to be lingering. And then, of course, it falls into place that it's a wrist injury. I think the NFL is going to give them a heavy fine. Again, the outside stuff with, people that have gambled or bet on the game, and it is what it is. It's just people are going to sit there and say, get rid of Thursday night football, right? I mean, that's going to be the argument. It's been the argument for years. Lamar Jackson got banged up. We've seen players go down. It is a short week. Everyone's injured. Everyone's hurt at this point of the season. They're not going to do it because it's just another window for a game during the week to lead in, obviously, to the weekend. And it kind of gives you that football fix. There's way too much money at stake. I mean, I've said this before. If anything, if you eliminate the Thursday night game, then you extend the season one more game. Or if you keep Thursday night, you eliminate Sunday night football. But again, everything goes through the NFLPA. They're going to want more money. I mean, can you foresee a scenario or situation where it's just not worth it because the league can ill afford to lose, right? These marquee quarterbacks. I mean, think about all the quarterbacks that have been banged up, that have gone out, that have gone down this season. It's a bad look for the league. And again, it goes back to the quality of play. It's always bad on Thursday because it's a short week and then players are getting injured.
Yeah, when I harken back to 2008 when Tom Brady got hurt early in the season, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody said, "Oh my goodness, we got to do something." We lost our best player, and no one's going to want to watch these games without these guys out there. And you're right, you lose Cousins, you lose Jones, Watson now, Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays into the
Yeah.
season. Yeah, these TV execs, they want to give the league the money, but then they're like, oh man, once the product that they're putting out there is subpar, you got backups playing, and you got um Nick Mullins, Nick Foles, and all these other backup type quarterbacks. They had Chase Daniel out there starting games, and it's just a Nathan Peterman in a prime time spot.
No.
Now we're going to have an undrafted rookie playing for the Bengals, and then it's unfortunate that the product that's going to be out there, but they're still going to say, okay, there's enough
Yeah.
people out there that they can next man up type of
Yep.
situation. And they're always going to point to Nick Foles as a guy who came in and he did the ultimate Cinderella story, won the Super Bowl, the backup that did good, Jeff Hostetler in the past. But
Yep.
it is bad look, but it's just a lot of money, as you said, Q involved. Look at next week. They're going to have 3 games on Thursday. They're going to have a Black Friday game, and then they're going to have their Sunday slate and a Monday game. So the NFL, as much programming as they get out there, they're going to do it. And I always get the stats from the league. Their broadcasts are the highest rated shows out there on a quarterly basis, according to Nielsen. So they got a lot of eyes on these games, and they're just going to keep rolling them out there and raking in the money. And it's unfortunate these quarterbacks won't be there to participate in some of these games.
Yeah, I mean, they still have the other faces of the franchises out there that should carry the league. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes, God forbid, goes down, I mean, all bets are off. But be that as it may, last word, good stuff with that. All right, so we'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. I want to get into some of these games already. Week 11 in the NFL, and then, of course, short week, Thursday, as you mentioned. It's a little potpourri mixed bag with the holidays coming up and Thanksgiving. So keep it locked in on Q. We'll step aside. We'll come back, and we'll do some predictions on this Sunday.